If you've ever tried to trace a group, whether it's a military unit, a small town church, or just a cluster of people from a shared place, you know how messy that kind of research gets. So when Ancestry released a new tool called Networks, I couldn't help but ask, could this have saved me weeks of works, or is it more hype than help? Before we dive in, have you tried the Networks tool yet? Or is this your first time hearing about it? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to see how curious or skeptical we all are. In this video, I'll walk you through how Networks actually works, where it shines, where it's still frustrating, and whether it can take your research further than you thought possible. Stick around to the end because the verdict might surprise you. Let me back up and tell you why I'm even interested in a tool like Networks. For 7 months, I was immersed in the research project that I shared with you on this channel about the Ohio 133rd Volunteer Infantry, a Civil War regiment with nearly 1,000 men who were not related, but they shared the experience in history. Some of them might be relatives, but I haven't uncovered that yet. I wanted to go beyond just building floating trees. I needed to link their lives, attach shared sources, even those that are off Ancestry, and eventually share my research in a way that others could explore. I also wanted to see the group as a whole. Where were they from? When did they marry? Who lived the longest? But this isn't about military research. Perhaps you've traced every family buried in a cemetery just to understand how they might be connected. Now, I really hope the cemetery was small. Or perhaps your project focuses on an orphanage, a church congregation, a school yearbook, a factory workforce, or everyone with the same surname in a single county. These are all the kinds of research that go beyond traditional family trees, and they take serious time, especially when it comes to organizing people who aren't genetically or genealogically connected. Now, if that's you, or it might be you someday, drop a comment below and let me know what kind of group project you're working on. I'd love to hear what's keeping you curious. Now, if you watched my series, that was 10 parts long. I know it's a little bit long, but after uploading my tree to Ancestry and tagging all the soldiers manually, I just kept thinking there has to be a better way. So when Ancestry released a tool called Networks, promising to help visualize and connect people by shared events, places, and experiences, I had to ask, could this have solved the problems I was drowning in, or was it more wistful thinking? So what exactly are networks, and why did they catch my attention? According to Ancestry, Networks is a new tool designed to help you connect people, not through bloodlines, but through shared places, events, and experiences. Think military unit that serve together, a ship's passenger list, all of those things that I talked about in the introduction. The idea is to bring social context into your research, what genealogists often call the fan club, friends, associates, and neighbors. Right now, Networks is only available to Pro Tool subscribers and is still in beta, so beta testing. That means a few things might be a little clunky, but it also means Ancestry is actively collecting user feedback to shape where the future goes next. But whether Ancestry networks are a time-saving solution to my research needs has limits, and here's the big one. At the time of filming, any network you build is completely private, even if your tree is public. That was a real sticking point for me because one of my goals was to create a research hub that other researchers could explore, learn from, or build upon. I didn't want to keep all this data in a private tree on my computer. Still, I didn't stop there because I realized that even if I couldn't share a network yet, there was another question worth answering. Behind the scenes in my private research space, could Ancestry networks still help me make faster discoveries? Could it help me organize the chaos? spot patterns, and save time without adding more busy work. That's what I set out to test, so let's take a look at how networks actually work. If you've already watched one of my colleagues set up a network and you're feeling confident, feel free to jump ahead using the chapter markers, but I know many of you are still exploring how this tool works, so let's go step by step. There are currently 3 ways to access the networks feature on Ancestry. Over here on the right of your home page after logging into Ancestry, you may see the networks. And notice for me, it says it's in beta. But let's go to the other ways you can look at it. Now, if I go to the tree, one place I would really like to see the feature to show up is, how there's these side little prompts on the left? It'd be really nice if when you click on the tree overview page, then you would see a network somewhere on this page. And right now, I am not seeing it. If I'm missing it, please let me know. Now you can open up an individual's profile. Let's do that right now. And if you scroll down on the right column, sometimes you'll have multiple individuals to see. In this case, I just have a few. And notice you're going to see create a network. And if you've already attached someone to a network, you will see the networks they are attached to. The next way is from the people list page, and it's a little bit tricky to get to. You can access it from the tree overview page, or you can click find in tree from any profile page, click on list of all people, and then you will get the people for the tree that you're working on. If we zoom in, we can see I'm working on the Ohio 133rd tree. If you click the filters option at the top of this list, you will see a pop-up menu that comes here, and then down right here, zoom in for you, you will see networks, and here I already have one started, so there's military. Now remember how I said things are a little wonky? Add these people to a network tree. There's nothing to click right here, but if I click on the filters, again, there's no way to start a new tree or start collecting people. But as soon as I click on one of the networks I've already created, now I'm going to see my list of networks of the people who have been put into this network. And then if I want to add to a network, I can add to one of these people. Or let's say I start with someone new, Townsend. Now that I've searched for a name, notice I can do create network or add to networks. And then what will happen is I will finally come to this page. So it's a little wonky, like you said. I would really like some easier click pattern. Honestly, if I was starting at this list, I'd like to be able to click create a network. And then instead of going here, I'd like to be able to click on a number of the people that is in this list, and then go through and start the network. The other thing you could do from this list page is we did that filter, and let's say you used a My Tree tag. For me, I have started the custom tree tags of the units A through K, and then also the regimental officers. They're called the field and staff. So that's the people that are in charge of the entire regiment, and then you have the different companies. So let's say I want to do Company K. I can click on Company K. This will filter to just the people in Company K, and from here, I can create a network. So there are a couple of ways to get a network started. There are some things I'd like to do a little bit differently, but at least we can get going. So let's go ahead and using Company K, I'm going to create a network. And before we continue, I do want to add that after you create a network, you can actually add more people to the network directly from their profile or from the people list. So that's handy. So let's go on to setting up a network. Now, Ancestry gives you a number of different options that you might want to generate for a network. And you can even create your own network based on something else. Maybe you want to do a one name study or a one place study. I think it would fall here. I would be interested to see how else you guys would classify things, but I'm going to go ahead and start with military. And then scroll down, and we can click continue. For the next step, Ancestry asks you to give your network a name. Don't overthink this step. Give it a name that fits the project and move on. For mine, I just started with Ohio 133rd Volunteer Infantry. I used VI. You can type almost any name you want, but note it must be alphanumeric. And I kind of don't like this because that means you can't use commas, ampersands, apostrophes, or symbols. So I can't put Ohio 133rd VI, comma. Notice I'm trying to hit this comma key, but it's not accepting it. And no matter what I do, it just kicks me to the end and said, nope, you're not going to add a comma. So I can't add that, but I can do Ohio 133rd Company K. Now, this also can be problematic. Let's say you wanted to do O'Neill. You can't. Or let's say you want to do St. Catherine's Choir. You can't. So I'm a little frustrated that you can't use those commas, but it's not a deal breaker. So let's go back and put the Ohio 133rd Company K back in. The next step is to add a brief description of your project. This description is private. It's just for you, so use it however it helps you the most. You might add a short history of the group, your research question, or your notes about who's included or excluded. I use it to explain anything that couldn't be included in the title due to the character and format limitations. Be mindful that you don't have a lot of space for your notes, so keep things brief. When you're satisfied with this information, click continue. If you're adding more than one person, Ancestry may prompt you again to confirm. Notice I have 3 people listed plus 86 others. Ancestry wants me to click create network again. If you're just adding one person to a network, I believe if I remember correctly, you don't have to do this extra step. So go ahead and click create network. Once Ancestry processes your selection, you'll get the confirmation message and a button to explore the network. Go ahead and click that, and we will explore what comes next. Once you've created your network, you'll land on the network main page, and this layout should look the same no matter how you created it. At the top, you'll see the title and the description that you added. If you ever want to change it, up in the upper right corner, you can go to settings, click on that, and you can edit the name or the description. You can even change the type of category. I don't want to change anything, so I'm going to click cancel. Just below that, you will see people, media, sources, and stickies. We'll go over each section in a moment. Below the menu options, you'll see a section for suggested tags related to your network. I haven't seen a clear explanation yet about why tagging your network matters, but I went ahead and clicked on Civil War Regiment. The other thing that I asked Ancestry about, I said, hey, can we add our own tags? And they said, right now you cannot. So if you're not sure what to do here, you don't worry. There's a little arrow that you can click and make that minimized, and you can move on. Then comes the people in your network list. This shows everyone you've added so far. Next to each name, there's a search icon. When you click on it, Ancestry fills in the standard search form using details from the person's profile. Nothing network specific that I've seen yet. Have you? If you have, let me know. You'll also notice a tools button beside each person. Right now, the options are limited. You can add a sticky, or you can remove a person from the network, and that's it. So far, there's nothing in this section that feels unique or makes me giddy. So the promise of a game-changing tool hasn't been actualized yet. But let's keep going in hopes of finding the golden ticket or the mind-blowing feature. I do want to tell you that I did talk to Ancestry product team, and they said eventually there will be some more tools in networks, and you'll be able to access it on that little tool menu. But for now, there really isn't anything else. As I scroll down the network page, I'm noticing something odd. You can access almost everything from the vertical scroll as you would from the tabs across the top. I'm not sure how I feel about that just yet. It might seem convenient, but if your network gets large, all the duplicate functionality could start slowing down the loading of your pages. And it's something to watch as your projects grow, and share your thoughts with me. The first menu option is the People tab, and it allows you to do the same things you could do on the network's landing page. Search, add tools, add people. But I don't see really much difference between the homepage or this tab, so please let me know if I'm missing something. At this stage of reviewing networks, I haven't seen anything that would replace what I did with my Ohio 133rd project. So far, I haven't saved hours of research. I've only spent a few moments generating a list of people in the same group. So as such, networks currently feels more like a workspace to potentially organize discoveries. If you're hoping it will automatically link people or surface new records, nope, I'm not seeing that happening just yet. So hopefully in the future, Ancestry promised new tools. That's something I'd like to see. So next is the Media tab. Now, this is the first area that feels network specific. You can add images or documents here from your gallery or upload them directly to the network. For a military network, you might add regimental flag images, maps of battle movements, group photographs of companies, scanned pages from regimental histories. But here's the trick. If you want to add something from your Ancestry gallery, the media must already be in the tree. So here's a death notice, but that really just applies for Thomas. So I'm going to go back, and then I'm going to try Edward. Let's see what he has. Well, he doesn't have anything. You have to select the media by person. There's no option yet to browse your actual gallery that contains all the media from your project, or to see which profiles has media. So this one did, and that's great. But remember, this Edward Bean, he did not have media, but notice there's nothing telling me, hey, don't look at this one. He doesn't have media. Or I can't select everybody and then go to a media gallery, filter to just these profiles, and then pick something that might be relevant to the entire network. So that means that you have to remember which people have media saved to their profiles, or risk clicking through names one by one to find out. It would be incredibly helpful to have something, like I said, a media count beside each person's name, or even better, the filtered gallery. But you can upload files directly from your computer. I'm not going to show that now, but if you click through choose file, it's pretty standard upload from your computer process. And in that case, the file is saved to the network only. And like everything in the network right now, it remains private. So if your goal is to share media, the best workaround I've found is to upload the image or document to at least one individual profile, then return to the network and select that person to bring the media into the entire network. With that being said, it doesn't seem to create a truly network-wide attachment. It's more like a placeholder for your research files, a way to keep relevant media in view, but not necessarily linked to everyone in the group. Honestly, I'm still undecided about how useful this is right now, so I really would love to hear your thoughts. What do you see as the pros and cons of uploading media directly to the network versus attaching it to a person first? So let's go to the Sources tab. I won't bury the lead here. I'm not a fan of how sources are currently structured. One of the most useful features networks could offer would be the ability to attach a source for the entire group without linking it to an individual profile. So you have to add from saved sources. And once again, you have to go person by person to find the sources that they had. The roster would be great, but I tagged my sources by person, not by group. And so the source will really identify Thomas, even though it really will be one page of the group, but everything else pertains to Thomas. So if you could link a source to the entire group, but not to the individual profile, it would be perfect for things like unit histories that apply to a regiment as a whole, but does not name specific soldiers. I would want that source to live at the network level, not cluttered amongst individual profiles where the information doesn't really belong. Other unit level sources might include camp locations and movements, battle participation records, unit accommodations or critiques, letters that mention the unit but not the individuals, post-war reunion documentation. But at the time of this recording, it seems like you can't do that. And I asked Ancestry and they said, no, that's not available right now. And for me, that's a pretty big limitation. And it's not just a military research problem. Think about all the other types of group research. A house history where the source focuses on the property, not the owner. Immigration research where you have ship documentation about the vessel and not the passengers. In those cases, you need a place to cite sources that support the context, not the individual. And right now, networks don't allow that. So of course, if you want to add a source, your workaround is attach it to an individual and then apply it to everyone else. I haven't found any other way around this unless I've missed something. But you guys know I don't like workarounds. I want consistency. And so I'd love for this feature to change sooner rather than later to make me like this network tool a little bit better. Right now, again, I'm going to give it a lot of grace because it is in beta. But if Ancestry does anything, I wish they would change the sources to the network specifically. That would be my first wish list item. Networks have sticky notes. Now we're closing in on the kind of flexible workspace that could amplify our research. Several of my colleagues have raved about this feature, and I can see why. Stickies are essentially a private workspace for notes. So you could put in a research question. For the purposes of this video, I'm just going to be pretty easygoing. You can type a research question, and then type in something that's related to Company K. If a date matters, you can put it in here. You can put the location that's attributed or connected with the note that you're making. You can add a research status. It's a little interesting, unverified, verified, brick wall, hypothesis, actively researching to do, and complete. So you can basically create a research log, if you will, for your sticky. And finally, you could add it to a person. But for me, the whole point of networks would be to not attach it to a single person, but rather the whole group. Now, remember I said networks are private. They're meant to function as a kind of workspace lab where you're collecting thoughts and patterns before anything is ready to share. And this might explain why the networks are private, and I can get that. So if stickies are the reason behind the privacy status, my enthusiasm has diminished a little, but I do see enormous potential here. Stickies support rich text formatting, including the ability to add a link, to bold text, to generate bulleted list and so forth, which makes them versatile for any note that you want to create. In my own project with the Ohio 133rd, I could use Stickies to add a unit timeline, summarize a unit history broken down by company, highlighted events for company K or A that were different from the rest of the regiment. So in the field and staff sticky note, I might do something for everyone. For company K, I might do something specific to company K. I could track research questions about battles or medicinal treatments. I could also mark to-do items for locating pension records as they pertain to people in company K. And I could also document when civilian relationships I discover while digging through service files overlap or in post-war censuses. So if Jane, the sister of Fred in company K, married his unit mate after the war, I can note that. If you're using networks for a one-name study, perhaps you'll create stickies for who's whose list within the cluster. Or maybe keep a resolved question sticky so you don't forget the breakthroughs you've already made. So for a group project, I can see how this would be helpful for network level research notes. You should be able to pick up exactly where you leave off if you take a break or work on another project. As for recommendations on how to use this feature, there are no real best practices yet. This is your workspace and it's flexible by design. I'd love to hear from you if you're using networks or planning to. What kind of stickies would you create for your project? Let me know in the comments because I think this is an area where we can all improve by understanding what others are utilizing this space for. Just when I thought I'd seen it all, there was one more feature that hints at where this tool could go if it reaches its full potential. You have to go back and click on all. I have to point out that I almost missed this feature, and I hope when we finally get there, you'll feel giddy like I do. It's the network mapper. Now, I've actually seen little links to network mapper in a number of different places, but I feel like it should have its own little tab up here. If we're going to have media sources and people on this page, we need to have a network link up here. Let me know if you feel the same way. So let's talk about this tool and why I like it so much. I'm going to click on View. At first glance, it provides a map showing the locations of your network members, but you must supply the questions in order to make it really powerful. That alone can spark some great research investigation. For example, in my project on the Ohio 133rd, this could help me visualize where the soldiers were born. How am I going to do that? Well, I'm going to click on Event Places and click on Birth. And notice we filtered to just where people were born. The only criticism I have, I'd like a legend somewhere. And let's say there were 90 people in the unit. We'd say 57 were in Ohio. This green color suggests maybe there's 4 or 5 in Pennsylvania. So maybe we'd say 4 in Pennsylvania. In Virginia, it's very light colored. So that'd be 1. But what if there was one who was born in Germany? If we zoom out of this map and there's just one person for those countries, you're going to have a very, very difficult time seeing that they're from those countries. So I think it would be really nice if there was this legend and then you'll know to check on a place that has that very, very faint light green and then go to other parts of the world. And it's not just with the military history, it can have many benefits for a variety of projects. So why would birth be helpful? Well, if you're trying to set the stage of what was the context in which your ancestors are serving in this military units, if you have people who were born in Ireland or in Germany or in another country overseas, you're going to know that these people have a dialect or a foreign language, and everybody's being brought together in one unit. And you can start speculating what would that have done to the unity within the unit? And if they tended to get along, wow, that's really great. All these different varieties of languages and so forth that they're getting along, that's really awesome. And if they're struggling, could it be because of the various places where people were from? Now you can track where soldiers lived just before an enlistment. And so to do that, I'm going to unselect birth. I'm going to click lived in, and then I'm going to put a year and bound it by a year. So I can do 1860 because I want the 1860 census to 1863, and that should give me the 1860 census and the 1863 census data. And because it says lived in, I coded everything as a residence fact. However, I don't know if it's just pulling in the residence fact or if I coded the draft registration as a military event, if it's pulling that in as well. It's unclear right now if that's the option. And I'm seeing right now that people are from Missouri, Indiana, and Ohio. So while we had somebody born in Pennsylvania and Virginia, currently, if all my data is accurate within the database, most of the people are living in Ohio with a handful Missouri, Indiana. But one of the problems I have is that I couldn't always find somebody in the 1860 census or in the 1863 draft. And so for my research project, I put in the 1850 census. And so I don't have a way to say, let me have these facts and highlight it on the map. You see how more powerful that is? I could say 1850, 1860, 1863. If you have any of those details plotted on a map, I would be thrilled. And then maybe we'll do just the 1863 census or draft, and I'll plot those out. And even though I don't have everybody, I'll have the majority of people that showed up in that document, and I can do some analysis there. So does that make sense? While we can have a range, we're still struggling to get exactly the questions we want answered, but the potential to ask these varieties of questions is what I'm really excited about. Now, I can't foresee myself doing family line questions in a research project or a health history project, but there are a number of projects where I can see that this would be valuable. Some of these filtering on the map would be beneficial for some projects over another. Now, another idea I had was to say, okay, who was showing up in the 1890 veterans census? And I can just put in a specific year, 1890 to 1890, and now we're seeing a little bit of movement. Granted, most of the people are in Ohio, but we have some who do show up on the 1890 census for veterans in Indiana, Missouri, Kansas, South Dakota. You can't really see that that's Kansas. It says United States. You have to really zoom in or remember your geography, y'all. South Dakota and then Montana. Now, if the people for some reason don't show up in the 1890 census, or I haven't found them in the 1890 census yet, I have to be careful saying nobody lived anywhere else because I don't know that to be true. So it would be kind of nice to be able to filter and say, okay, who was alive in 1890? If you have the birth date and the death date of someone and you found them and you're trying to say who's alive in 1890, even if I don't have where they were located, it would be kind of interesting to have, okay, well, in 1890, here's where the people we have a source for is, and then here is a list of the people where they are alive, we just don't know where they are, or they're probably here. You see, this really can be so cool, and I'm actually kind of excited about this. So do I like the concept of the network mapper? Absolutely. My initial review is that either I'm using it incorrectly, Ancestry needs more on-screen prompts to teach us all the possibilities, Or the mapper is not yet fully built out, but it could be with more feedback. I'm not really sure. However, if Ancestry continues to refine this feature, it could become a powerful tool for visualizing the historical movements and social context. I love it. I'd love to hear how you might use this mapping tool in your research. But here's the truth. If the goal is to save hours of research time, the network isn't quite there yet. It could be, but right now it feels like a framework for something amazing, not the finished project. And Ancestry development team suggested that that was the case, so my assessment wasn't far off before I asked them. So what would actually tip the scales? What would make networks not just interesting, but indispensable? Let's start with compiled timelines. Imagine this. You create a network and Ancestry automatically extracts all the dated life events that you've put into your tree. Births, marriage, deaths, military service, pension, even census entries, and builds a single scrollable timeline for the entire group. And then events are clustered by a year so that, let's say in 1865, for example, you could see who got married right after the war. And then you could possibly filter by children and see what the baby boom effect was. In 1890, who passed away? In 1907, who filed for a pension? If you could filter the timeline by event type, it would be a goldmine. And you can spot trends like the baby boom I suggested or identify the earliest pension application. And then if you start seeing a cluster of applications, that might clue you in on who might be serving as witnesses for whom, because they might be doing quite a few at the same time. That kind of big picture context is not just interesting, it's essential for writing rich, human-centered history. And it doesn't just apply for military events and participation in units. Networks feels like the perfect place for this to happen. So I really am hoping this is something we'll see in the future. Next up, biographical comparisons. What if Ancestry gave us basic group statistics? How many men in the network enlisted under the age of 20? How many were married at the time of enlistment? How many lived past 80 or died within 5 years of the war? Even better, what if an AI tool inside the network could summarize things like which surname group had the most intermarriages? Who showed up most often as a witness or associate in key records? Granted, you'd have to give that to Ancestry, but if it could tell you that, that would be pretty amazing. What age group was most likely to file for a pension? These statistics would just not only be interesting trivia, they would help us ask better questions, uncover new patterns, and write deeper, more connected stories. And again, it's not just for military records, it's for all of the potential projects that they filter to the networks too. Now here's the big one, powered up research hints. Picture this. You're researching someone like Edward Harris. All you know is he served in the Ohio 133rd and was a unit drum major. That's it. You can't find him in census records. He didn't file a pension record. You're not sure which obituary applies to him. You've got nothing to work with. But what if Ancestry used the rest of the network to enhance the searches? Instead of just looking for Edward Harris, the engine could run a search that has Edward Harris and anyone else in his unit. Maybe there is a neighbor that shows up in Edward's record or in a city directory, possibly. That one might be a little bit harder, but in a land record or in a probate case or a church registry or baptismal record. Get the idea? Or eventually, if all the GAR records, the Grand Army of the Republic, and that's just military, there's so many records where if you put one person in and you put an associate in, you might be able to figure out your person, right? Because you started with an initial group before. That kind of search will absolutely leverage fan club research, and it could crack open brick walls we've hit 100 times. And yes, I get it. The problem with that, it would likely require massive computing resources. But this might be a premium level feature one day. And honestly, for a tough case, for researchers willing to invest in deep level context rich stories searches, I think it definitely would be worth the premium price. But even if it's not possible, the vision is there. A network that doesn't just store connections, it uses them to push your research forward. Another idea is if ancestry networks could actually show how the people within a group are connected, not only genealogically, but contextually, I would lose my mind in the best way. Like, seriously. These are the kinds of tools that would save time, spark insights, and make historical writing downright thrilling. And I'm hoping this is just the beginning. So back to the big question. Does Ancestry networks actually save time on complex group research? Here's my quick verdict. Sharing, not yet. Networks are private only, so collaboration is limited. You also can't attach sources at the network level, which makes citations sharing tricky. Discovery, not really. I didn't see any record hints that use network context. I'd love to see smarter searches that surface shared documents based on group traits. Analysis. This is where things get interesting. While it doesn't replace the systems I've already built, visualizing patterns with the network mapper has potential, especially if Ancestry builds out better filters, maybe adds the timelines and the cross-network views. So did it save me hours of work? Not yet, but it might if Ancestry continues to develop it. So right now, it feels like a flexible workspace for organizing thoughts, not a research accelerator. I appreciate what Ancestry is trying to build tools beyond the pedigree charts, and this one has promise. Will I use it across all my trees? Probably not yet, but I will keep experimenting, and if something changes, you'll be the first to know. If you're budget conscious, maybe skip upgrading to Pro Tools for now and invest in something else you have on your genealogy to-do list, like a lookup at the National Archives. But if you're curious and have a little extra money to spend, dive in and share your feedback. That's how tools like this become better for all of us. Like this video and leave a comment. Your feedback is important to keep Family History Fanatics on YouTube. Thanks. Now back to learning the next valuable genealogy research tip.